This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with AutoQuote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices may vary on how you buy.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Tonight, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Don't miss John Cena's farewell moment. Monday Night Raw, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Witness the moment everyone will be talking about.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Big Mad True Crime, where we get big mad over true crime. I'm your host, Heather Ashley, and today you'll be hearing the third and final part of the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs mass shooting series. In part 2, we learned who the gunman was, 26-year-old Devin Patrick Kelly, and the long trail of violence that led him to the doors of the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs. He'd been discharged from the Air Force for assaulting his wife and infant stepson, yet somehow still managed to pass background checks and amass a growing arsenal of guns. Every red flag, the domestic violence, the mental health issues, the threats, had been ignored or buried in bureaucratic failure. Years before the shooting, Kelly terrorized his first wife, Tessa, and brutally abused her baby. When the military failed to hold him accountable, he went on to repeat that cycle with his second wife, Danielle. He isolated her from her family, beat her, and threatened to kill her if she ever tried to leave. By 2017, he had stockpiled multiple weapons and tactical gear. He posted disturbing rants about mass murder online and openly fantasized about revenge. Days before the shooting, he visited the very church he would soon destroy, pretending to make peace while actually just preparing his attack. 6 days later, on November 5th, he walked into that church and opened fire, murdering 26 people and injuring 22 others, including children, grandparents, and entire families. Then he fled the scene and took his own life. After identifying 26-year-old Devin Kelly as the gunman, a team of Texas Rangers interviewed his wife, Danielle. She told them about what had happened that morning and what had been happening for years. How he was abusive, how his mental health was slipping, how he was buying more guns, more ammunition, and more gear. According to court documents, the Rangers then told Danielle that Kelly had carried out a mass shooting at the First Baptist Church. They asked if that place held any significance, and Danielle replied, "It's where I grew up. That's the church I went to as a kid." When the Rangers asked if anyone inside would have been significant to her or to Kelly, she said, "My mother, my grandmother, my second family." She gave them the names of her family members who regularly attended services, Michelle Shields, her mother, and Lou White, her grandmother, before adding, "Everybody in that church is like family, though." At the time, they didn't tell Danielle that her grandmother Lou was indeed one of the people Kelly had killed. Hey guys, gift giving season is my Super Bowl. I am always looking to win the non-existent award for the most thoughtful gift. And you know what is always a winner? Memories. Memories are what hold us together when we're far apart from the people we love and what helps us smile when maybe the present isn't so glistening. Because of that, one of my go-to gifts every single year is the skylight frame. You can even preload some of your favorite memories onto it, so when your loved one opens it up, it is already a meaningful gift. And it is so easy to use that even the least tech-savvy person in your life will love it, including me. I am the least tech-savvy person in your life. Skylight Frame is a digital picture frame you can send photos to, and they appear in just seconds. It is the perfect gift for anyone you love. The Skylight Frame's quick 1-minute setup is easy for people of all ages or tech skills. You don't need an app or even a subscription. And don't worry, if you're not happy with your frame, you can return it within 4 months for a full refund, no questions asked. Plus, if your device experiences a covered issue within the first 3 years, Skylight will replace it free of charge. Now, that is what I call customer service. I am not shocked in any way, shape, or form that the Today Show, Wall Street Journal, HuffPost, and Tom's Guide all recommend the Skylight frame. I mean, they should definitely add me to that list because 10 out of 10. I've been using Skylight for years now. Between their frames and their other products, and my love for them is why I started giving them as gifts to other people, and every single person I've gifted one to absolutely loves it. From my mom, my grandparents, and even my friends. It is so simple, and honestly, they have some really cute designs. Skylight honestly sets the bar when it comes to digital picture frames. And I, like I said, am probably the least tech-savvy person you know, and even I can use it. So again, 10 out of 10 recommend. And rest assured, more will be gifted this Christmas. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $20 off their 10-inch frames by going to myskylight.com/bigmad. Go to myskylight.com/bigmad for $20 off your 10-inch frame. That's myskylight.com/bigmad. Court documents state that the Rangers also interviewed Michelle that day. Michelle explained that she usually went to church every Sunday, but had stayed home that morning to spend time with her grandson. She told investigators, "I really think he was coming after my family." As the Rangers gathered statements, they also tried to figure out how a man with a violent felony record like his managed to legally buy so many guns. They learned that every weapon Kelly owned had come from federal firearms licensees, purchases that required FBI background checks. That discovery set off multiple investigations, including one by the Department of Defense and another by the FBI itself. The Secretary of Defense ordered the Inspector General to determine whether Kelly's felony conviction had ever been reported to the FBI, and if not, why. By law, when someone is convicted of a felony through a court-martial, the Defense Department must report that conviction and sentence to the FBI. That's how the system is supposed to prevent felons from legally buying guns. According to court documents, investigators ultimately found that the Air Force never submitted Kelly's fingerprints or his final disposition report, the paperwork documenting his conviction for assaulting his first wife and her son. That means the FBI had no idea Kelly was a felon, which is why he wasn't flagged during the background check process. And it didn't end there. When Kelly was sent to a military correctional facility to serve his sentence, that facility was also supposed to submit a report to the FBI and send in his fingerprints. They did neither. That meant 2 separate systems failed, and because of those failures, Kelly legally bought 4 guns from licensed dealers, and he brought 3 of them with him to the church on November 5th of 2017. Once it became clear that the Air Force had failed to follow protocol, Nearly 80 surviving victims and family members, collectively known as the plaintiffs, filed a lawsuit against the federal government. Their argument was extremely simple. If the Air Force had reported Devin Kelly's criminal history like it was supposed to, the massacre at First Baptist Church never would have happened. The Air Force pushed back. They claimed they weren't responsible for what Kelly did, arguing that their failures didn't cause the shooting because Kelly was aware of many avenues for obtaining firearms without going through a background check. Maybe, maybe not. We'll never know because he got to go through with the background checks. That case went to a bench trial in 2021. The goal was to determine why the shooting happened and whether the government could be held liable. According to court documents, after hearing weeks of testimony, Judge Xavier Rodriguez concluded that Kelly's attack on the church was rooted in domestic violence. It was part of a long pattern of abuse, physical, emotional, and psychological, aimed at controlling and isolating Danielle. Judge Rodriguez also found that the Air Force's failure to report Kelly's felony conviction to the FBI directly increased the risk of injury and death. If they had done their job, Kelly wouldn't have been able to legally buy the 3 guns he used in the attack. Their negligence didn't just fail the victims, it endangered the public. Now, like we just talked about, the Air Force tried to argue that Kelly would have gotten his guns another way, even if they'd followed protocol. But Judge Rodriguez rejected that claim, saying he had to rely on facts, not hypotheticals. The facts showed that every gun Kelly owned on the day of the shooting had been purchased through a licensed dealer. The judge wrote that the mere possibility Kelly could have obtained firearms elsewhere does not make it probable. His mere knowledge of alternative avenues of acquiring weapons is no evidence of intent. Judge Rodriguez emphasized that the Air Force knew more about Kelly's potential for violence than anyone else. More than his parents, more than his partners, more than anyone. They had detailed records of his threats, his assaults, and his instability. They knew what he was capable of, and yet they never sent his information to the FBI. They let the system fail. Based on all the evidence, Judge Rodriguez concluded that had the government done its job, it was more likely than not that Kelly would have been deterred from carrying out the church shooting. The government's negligence, he ruled, partially caused the deaths and injuries at First Baptist Church on November 5th of 2017. He found the United States government 60% responsible for the harm. Yes, that's 60% responsible for the murders of 26 people and the lifelong injuries of 22 others. Let that sink in. The judge found the government more responsible than Kelly himself. That's how catastrophic their failure was. After Judge Rodriguez found the Air Force liable, the next phase of the trial was to determine how much the plaintiffs should be compensated. According to court documents, this process took nearly 2 months. Dozens of survivors and family members of the victims took the stand to describe what the shooting had done to their lives, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Nearly every person, whether they had been inside the church or not, had been diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and/or anxiety. They spoke about how the trauma touched every moment of their lives, how loud noises made them freeze, how they avoided public areas, how even an unexpected phone call could send their heart racing. It was devastating to hear, but also very much necessary because we have to talk about what this kind of violence truly does. not just in those 7 minutes, but in every single minute that comes after. The ripple effects here, they never stop. The trauma doesn't fade away, and pretending it does only ensures that it's going to happen again. There were too many testimonies for me to be able to share in a single podcast episode, but one of the most powerful came from John Porter Holcomb, who had been in the sound booth that morning. He was struck multiple times by shrapnel, but survived. What he lost that day is beyond comprehension. John lost 9 members of his family in that shooting. His parents, Brian and Carla, his brother Danny, and Danny's daughter Noah. Danny's wife, Jennifer, survived but lost her husband and her only child. John also lost his wife, Crystal, their unborn baby, and 3 of Crystal's children from her previous marriage, Emily, Greg, and Megan. One of Crystal's children, 7-year-old Evelyn, survived the shooting with injuries from being trampled, and 15-year-old Philip hadn't been there that day. This episode is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack and hydration sponsor. IQ Bar is the better-for-you plant protein-based snack made with brain-boosting nutrients to refuel, nourish, and satisfy hunger without the sugar crash. You guys already know by now that I stan for IQ Bar. They are my go-to anytime snack because they manage to be both delicious and packed with clean ingredients like magnesium, lion's mane, and more, while being free from gluten, soy, artificial sweeteners, and GMOs. Summary here, I can enjoy some goodies totally guilt-free. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ Bars, 8 IQ Mix Sticks, and 4 IQ Joe Sticks. IQ Bar's plant protein bars are a smarter snack choice with more fiber and less sugar and carbs than the alternatives. Then you have IQ Mix, which is a zero-sugar drink mix that hydrates with electrolytes, improves mood, and boosts clarity. They are incredible, and I drink at least one of them a day. And we cannot forget about IQ Joe, which is their jitter-free instant coffee packed with 200 milligrams of natural caffeine, and it comes in 4 different flavors. I was, honestly, a little bit nervous about instant coffee, but it was incredible, and the convenience here is unmatched. I even keep some packets in my purse just in case I'm out and need a little quick coffee pick-me-up. It is perfect. From mint chocolate chip protein bars to blueberry pomegranate hydration mixes, toasted hazelnut coffee, and even limited edition and seasonal flavors, IQ Bar products never, ever disappoint. There is something for everyone, and I look forward to their seasonal flavors every year, and I just got their gingerbread bars. You guys, it feels like Christmas in my mouth. Yes, I said it. 10 out of 10 recommend, maybe even 11 out of 10 recommend. I have them on my desk, in my purse, and in my car in case I ever forget my purse. That is how good they are. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bars, brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text BIG to 64,000. Text BIG to 64,000. That's BIG to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. According to court documents, John testified about how life looked after this massacre. He kept raising Evelyn and Philip just as he had before. Their biological father had died in 2011, so when John married Crystal, he became their second father in really every sense of that word. But now he was their only parent. He was trying to hold his family together while mourning nearly everyone he had ever loved. It is a reality that defies comprehension. John testified that all of these years later, he still hadn't been able to erase the image of his wife and their children dead inside of the church. Returning home was almost impossible. The silence was unbearable. He described walking into a house that used to be full of laughter, Crystal greeting him, the children playing, and finding now just emptiness. He said he still dreams of them, that he clings to their memories, longing for the comfort Crystal gave him, and can barely sleep without her. Court documents state that John said he struggled to fill Crystal's role. She had been the heart of their home, the one who kept everything running. She homeschooled the children and made sure every need was met. Philip, who had been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, relied heavily on Crystal. She understood how to balance his academic needs with his social boundaries, and she worked with him every day to help him succeed. But John had to work a full-time job to keep food on the table, and homeschooling was no longer possible. Philip had to go to public school, which was an overwhelming adjustment for him. Evelyn faced her own trauma. She had been with her siblings and her mother when they were killed, and she had been found underneath of them afterward. At 7 years old, she had already lived through something no one should ever have to live through. John testified that Evelyn was in a state of shock for a significant period of time after the shooting. Given her age, he said it was difficult for her to grasp what had happened or what forever even meant. She often asked for her mom, who she called the best mom ever. Concerned for her well-being, John sought therapy to help her process what she survived. According to court documents, as Evelyn got older and began to understand the permanence of her loss, she started having recurrent dreams about her mom and siblings. John told a psychiatrist that Evelyn appears deeply saddened by the fact that she's unable to experience a united family even within the context of her dreams. The damage done to John, Evelyn, and Philip, both physical and psychological, is immeasurable, and their story is just one among dozens. Tara McNulty, a close friend of the Holcomb family who had even lived with Brian and Carla, was also in the sanctuary that day. She was there with her two children, 15-year-old Haley and 12-year-old James, and her aunt Margaret McKenzie. All four of them were shot multiple times, and Tara tragically did not survive. According to court documents, Margaret was hit 3 times, and though she didn't need surgery to remove the bullets or fragments, several of her wounds remained open long after. Because Margaret has cerebral palsy with spasticity, she required home health care to manage her recovery. Margaret said that before the shooting, she was active and adventurous. Despite her cerebral palsy, she loved skiing, kayaking, and even tried sled hockey. She used to walk independently with a cane and lived her life to the fullest. By 2021, her mobility was limited. She depended on a rolling walker or electric scooter, tired easily, and struggled with reduced grip strength. Her spasticity worsened, and she suffered hearing loss that required new hearing aids. The scars from her wounds are a daily reminder of what she lived through. But the physical pain isn't what hurts the most. Margaret was extremely close to her niece, Tara. She never had children of her own and thought of Tara and her kids, Haley and James, as her own family. Losing Tara just inches away from her has left her with profound survivor's guilt. She said, "Tara was a mom. She had kids. I figured she deserved to have a life. She was younger than me. She needed to live her life, and I've already spent a lot of living before this happened. She needed to live on." Haley had been shot 5 times, according to court documents. She underwent surgery and then months of physical and occupational therapy. She was left with lifelong pain. Before the shooting, Haley was a long-distance runner. She tried returning to the track, but she had to stop. She said, "It's very hard whenever you were so good at something, and now it's like you can't even do half of what you used to be able to do." Haley said her body still carries the evidence of what happened. Deep scars marked her legs, chest, and back. Bits of shrapnel sit just under her skin. For a long time, she was ashamed of the way she looked. She avoided wearing shorts or dresses and cried through her senior photos. With time, she learned to accept her scars, even if the pain never goes away. Losing her mother has been the hardest part to live with. Tara was her best friend, her biggest supporter, the person who showed up for everything. Haley struggles with the fact that she never got to say goodbye. After her mom's death, she felt like she had to grow up overnight to help take care of her younger brother, James. He survived with 3 gunshot wounds. According to court documents, he underwent surgery and his recovery was long and painful. Like his sister and aunt, he was left with scars and chronic pain. Before the shooting, James had been an athletic, energetic kid. He loved swimming, karate, baseball, football, and riding his bike. Afterward, doctors told him to avoid contact sports and any activity involving sudden movement. He'd not been able to return to most of what he loved. Still, he pushed himself in therapy and eventually managed to run a full mile without stopping. Like his sister Haley, James had shared a close bond with his mother, Tara. She worked 2 jobs to provide for her children and supported them in everything they did. Their relationship was especially close. He was her baby, and there was nothing he could do wrong in her eyes. James deeply missed his mom. In his interview with a psychologist, he said his greatest wish would be to see her again. He described her as kind and loving and said he often thought about how she died and how he never got to say goodbye. The loneliness weighed heavily on him, and those memories continued to haunt him. Hey guys, hydration is really, really ridiculously important. It plays such a huge role in so many different functions in our daily lives. And while water alone can be a little bit boring, Cure Hydration makes staying hydrated doubly enjoyable. So let's talk about it. Cure Hydration is clean and simple. It's packed with plant-based electrolytes, 0 added sugar, and has only 25 calories per packet. Let's face it, water is kind of bland, but Cure's flavors are delicious, and it's more effective than just water alone. They have flavors like watermelon, berry pomegranate, and lemonade, and they're never overwhelming. I feel like I've tried almost every hydration product out there, and they're either like too salty-ish or almost slimy, but Cure must have just cracked the code here or something, because it honestly just tastes like you're drinking really well-flavored water. I have a little setup in my kitchen just for my Cure products, and me and the kids have fun every single morning picking out which flavor we're going to choose for the day. I had their blood orange one today, and it is definitely one of my favorites. Honestly, though, you cannot go wrong with any of them. Every morning, I just drop a packet into my water, and boom, hydration goals are in sight, my friends. It is so easy and so good, and my body, not feeling like a raisin, definitely thanks me. I even keep some extra packs in my purse just in case I'm out and I feel like I need a little bit of a hydration boost. Oh, and Cure also has an energy drink mix, which is also plant-based. It has 100 milligrams of natural caffeine and, of course, electrolytes, so you get that boost without the jitters or crash. They come in amazing flavors like peach tea and acai berry that aren't overly sweet, just enough to enjoy. It's great for a morning boost, a pre-workout, or even an afternoon pick-me-up. Sometimes I'm just not in the mood for coffee in the morning, so this is perfect for those mornings where I obviously need some help waking up, but I'm not in the mood for coffee, it is a game changer. Staying hydrated isn't just about water. You also need electrolytes. That's why I love Cure. It's clean, tastes great, and actually works. For Big Mad True Crime listeners, you can get 20% off your first order at curehydration.com/bigmad with code BIGMAD. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cure right here. It really helps support the show. Don't just drink more water, upgrade it with Cure. The family of Keith Braden also testified during that trial. Keith's son Robert had been in the sound booth with John Holcomb when the shooting occurred. During the massacre, Keith, his wife Deborah, and their granddaughter Zoe were all shot multiple times. Deborah and Zoe somehow survived, but the injuries left lifelong pain, scars, and trauma. Robert's head had been grazed by a bullet, and he survived as well, but Keith sadly passed away. According to court documents, Deborah was rushed to the hospital, but doctors postponed surgery after discovering a sudden and severe decline in her heart function. Testing later ruled out a blockage, and she was diagnosed with broken heart syndrome. Once stable, Deborah did undergo surgery to clean her wounds and remove shrapnel and debris. She was released from the hospital days later, relying on a walker and home health care. Her injuries left lasting scars and embedded fragments of shrapnel. Doctors continued to monitor her blood lead levels, and she continued to live with chronic pain. Court documents state that Deborah testified about the impact of Keith's death, and she said, "He did so much for me, and we did so much together. It was a big hole in my heart not having him around." She admitted that she still struggled to accept his loss, saying, "It's very difficult to hear a sound and think it's my husband coming home, but it's not." As time passed, Deborah said, that hole is still there. The ache, the companionship, being able to have someone there to talk to, just him being there was our world. That was my world. Deborah and Keith's adult children, Robert and Elizabeth, also spoke about how the shooting had changed their lives. Robert said he felt lost without his father, that he was missing his guide. He expressed deep grief knowing that Keith never had a chance to meet his grandchildren, who were born after the shooting. Elizabeth had not been at the church during the service, but she'd been there earlier that morning to drop off her 6-year-old daughter, Zoe. She stayed for a few minutes to chat, sitting in the same seat her father would later die in, something that left her with intense survivor's guilt. After she left, the shooting began, taking her father's life and leaving her mother and daughter severely injured. Zoe was shot 3 times. According to court documents, she underwent multiple surgeries and spent 25 days in the hospital before finally returning home in a wheelchair. Recovery for her was also long and painful. Zoe's mother had to help her bathe, move, and attend frequent wound care and physical therapy appointments. Despite years of treatment, Zoe was left with lasting nerve damage and foot drop in her left leg. She had to wear a brace to walk and relied on a wheelchair for longer distances. Zoe's body had deep scars and retained shrapnel. She covered her scars even in the summer and lived with chronic pain. Doctors further warned that her pelvic injuries could cause complications if she ever wanted to become pregnant. Elizabeth testified that after the shooting, Zoe became more dependent on her. She began sleeping beside her every night, unable to fall asleep alone. Zoe suffered from panic attacks, missed school often, and cried frequently. The shooting also changed Elizabeth's relationship with her mother. Before that day, Elizabeth and Deborah had vacation together, and Elizabeth often confided in her without worrying. Deborah had been the one who organized family gatherings and kept everyone close. After the shooting, though, things were just different. Deborah was in constant pain and often emotionally drained. Elizabeth said her mom is not feeling well. A lot of times it's the hurting. She hurts, her body hurts, or she's just emotionally exhausted. Elizabeth added, I feel like it's a burden to her for me to have to talk to her about any of it because she's still living it herself. And of course, she couldn't go to her father because he had been killed in that shooting. It's all just unfathomable to even try and comprehend. Joanne Ward and her 4 children, ages 5 to 9, were also in the church that day: Emily, Rihanna, Ryland, and Brooke. Joanne's husband, Chris, had stayed home that day after working the night shift. Tragically, Joanne, Emily, and Brooke were all killed. Rihanna and Ryland miraculously survived. According to court documents, 5-year-old Ryland was shot 4 times. In total, he endured 34 medical procedures and spent 3 months in the hospital. After his discharge, Ryland attended physical therapy for over a year. Despite his progress, he was unable to fully extend his left arm, and his wrist and fingers remained weak. The damage from one injury affected his ability to have children later as an adult. The growth plate in his hip had also been destroyed, so his left leg stopped growing evenly with his right. The difference, about 5 centimeters, caused constant pain and made walking difficult. According to court documents, Ryland's mobility was limited, and pain prevented him from running, jumping, or playing sports like football and baseball, the things he loved the most before the shooting. Beyond all of that, his body carried extensive scarring, and bullet fragments remained lodged deep within his body. In 2021, doctors performed surgery to remove dead bone and place a graft, plate, and screws. They told his family he would one day need leg lengthening surgery, followed later in life by a total hip replacement. The emotional toll was just as severe. For the first year after the shooting, Ryland slept in the same room as his father because of constant nightmares. Years later, he still struggled to sleep throughout the night, often crying, talking, or walking in his sleep. Ryland's sister, 9-year-old Rihanna, escaped the church with only minor physical injuries. She still carried small scars on her arm and leg from gunpowder burns she suffered inside the church, but it was the emotional weight for her that was so much heavier. According to court documents, Rihanna had been very close with her mom, Joanne, and her siblings. She described her mom as the protector of the household, someone who always made sure her children were safe and doing what they loved. Since the shooting, Rihanna had lived with her aunt, Mandy. Though she felt loved and supported, she admitted it's not the same. She visited her mother's and sister's graves often, leaving behind poems, letters, and jars of sand and seashells she collected. She wore a bracelet with their photos and kept their clothing close, afraid of forgetting them. Before the shooting, Rihanna had been outgoing and surrounded by friends. Afterwards, she pulled back. She kept her distance from others and struggled to trust anyone outside of her small circle. She often cried through the night, waking from nightmares so vivid they made her sick. Sometimes she shut down completely, just preferring to be alone. Rihanna's aunt worried about what the future might hold for her, saying, I feel like she's going to have trust issues, anger issues, anxiety. Joanne's husband, Chris, wasn't at the church that day, but he lost so much. After the shooting, he struggled deeply. The grief left him anxious, depressed, and consumed by guilt. According to court documents, in the months that followed, Chris began self-medicating with alcohol. He found it difficult to maintain steady work or close friendships, and by 2020, his mental health had declined to the point that he was hospitalized for severe depression, suicidal thoughts, and alcohol use disorder. After his discharge, he began therapy and medication as part of an ongoing treatment plan. Despite continued care, Chris still suffered from insomnia, flashbacks, and intrusive memories of the shooting. He carried heavy survivor's guilt, often thinking, I should have been there with them. I could have helped them, maybe. Gunny Messias was in the church that day too, and during the shooting, he sang Jesus Loves Me with young Rihanna to keep her calm. Gunny was shot between 5 and 7 times, barely making it out alive. He underwent multiple surgeries, and his recovery was complicated by infections, blood loss, respiratory distress, and periods of both hemorrhagic and septic shock. He spent nearly 70 days in the ICU before being transferred to a rehabilitation facility where he began physical and occupational therapy. According to court documents, learning to walk again was painful and frightening. Gunny described his legs as just twigs and said he feared injuring himself with each attempt. After a month of rehab, he was able to move with the help of a wheelchair and walker and was discharged home with ongoing wound care and home health support. Gunny continued to live with severe pain from his injuries. He avoided eating around others, traveling, or being in public. His body had extensive scars and shrapnel remained embedded in his skin. Before the shooting, Gunny and his wife Jennifer had led an active, social life filled with camping trips, scuba diving, and gatherings with friends. Now he said, I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. The physical limitations, unrelenting pain, and embarrassment surrounding his injuries had drastically changed his life. Gunny was a 24-year-old Marine veteran and had previously been diagnosed with PTSD from his deployments, but had largely recovered before the shooting. Afterward, his trauma returned in full force. He suffered from severe PTSD and depression and said he thought about the shooting all the time. He experienced flashbacks, night terrors, and an exaggerated startle response to sudden noises. Even small sounds, like his wife closing a water bottle, could send him into a panic. At night, he often woke from violent dreams where he screamed or thrashed, sometimes mistaking Jennifer for the gunman. Gunny also carried heavy survivor's guilt. He replayed moments from that day constantly, seeing his friend Robert Corrigan die and wishing he'd been able to comfort him, or hearing young Rihanna cry out for help. He said, I didn't save anybody's life. Someone once said we did everything wrong, that we should have run. I felt so guilty because I was the first one to yell, get down. I know if everyone had tried to run, more people would have died, but the guilt is still there. Peggy Warden was at the church that day with her 18-year-old grandson, Zach. According to court documents, Zach survived 7 gunshot wounds. He underwent multiple surgeries and spent nearly a month in the hospital. He left in a wheelchair and needed assistance for almost everything. The physical and emotional toll of recovery was severe. Once athletic and active, he now lived with constant pain and frustration as progress came slowly. He wore braces and used a cane to walk, but still tired easily and sometimes needed a wheelchair for longer distances. His body had extensive scars, and he was self-conscious about the visible damage. He often wore compression sleeves or long pants to cover them and felt anxious when people stared. The lingering pain and weakness made daily life difficult. He struggled to maintain steady employment because of that fatigue and his limited mobility. According to court documents, the psychological impact was just as lasting. Zach suffered from panic attacks, flashbacks, and nightmares, and startled easily at loud noises. He was withdrawn at school and lost motivation for the hobbies he once loved. Zach's mother, Jennifer, wasn't at the church that day, but she suffered deeply. She lost her mother and nearly lost her son. She spent every day by his side helping him recover. She was also deeply mourning her mother. They had shared a really close bond. They lived on the same family farm in separate houses, but saw each other every day. Jennifer said they may as well have lived with each other. When she wanted to share her children's milestones or needed advice, her mom was always the first person she called. She said, "She was my best friend, my confidant, my mentor, my teacher." She asked, "Who do you call instead? Who would replace that?" And I don't have an answer yet. Since her mother's death, Jennifer has found it difficult to return to the activities they once loved, like gardening. She also struggles with fear and a loss of safety. She said, "The church was safe and sacred, and my mother was murdered. So how do I feel safe anywhere else moving forward?" All of this is absolutely gut-wrenching, and those were just a handful of the testimonies shared by survivors and their families. The court document summarizing them stretched 185 pages long, each one filled with heartbreak, trauma, and the kind of loss that never truly heals. After hearing all of the testimonies, Judge Rodriguez took the next 3 months to reach a decision on how much in damages should be paid. In the end, he ordered the Air Force to pay more than $230 million to the survivors and families of the victims for their pain and suffering, mental anguish, disfigurement, impairment, and loss of companionship. Later, the Air Force settled with the victims and agreed to pay nearly $145 million. The New York Times reported that the settlement was among the largest of its kind, exceeding previous payouts following mass shootings where the government failed to act on warning signs or share critical intelligence that might have prevented them. In comparison, the Department of Justice had paid $127.5 million to the victims of the 2018 Parkland shooting and $88 million to the families impacted by the 2015 Charleston church shooting. Following the Sutherland Springs ruling, the lead attorney for the families released a statement saying, "The Sutherland Springs families are heroes. They have gone through so much pain and loss in the most horrific way. But despite that, these families fought for justice, endured, and won against the federal government." Around that same time, some families also found themselves in another battle, though, and this time with the church itself. After the shooting, the original building was no longer used for services. It had been preserved as a memorial to the victims. The walls were painted white, and empty chairs bearing the names of those killed lined the sanctuary. A new church was eventually built nearby. But as time passed, church leaders argued that the old building had become a painful reminder. In 2021, they voted to demolish it. Some of the victims' families fought to stop the demolition in court, and for a while, they succeeded. But in 2024, the building was torn down, a move that left many feeling devastated. A member of the community who opposed the decision told the Associated Press, "The devil got his way." And while I am wildly unqualified to have any opinion here, from the outside looking in and knowing that people were divided, I can see how there's a division there. There's one side where this horrible, awful thing happened, and it almost just feels like it's in the ground at this point. It's in the air at that location. Nothing can delete it. But there's also this sense that that's the last place that this person that you loved forever was alive. And I almost, in the same way that I will visit the gravesite of a family member, it feels like a piece of them is there and there's a way to reach them or just feel like they're not so far away because you're where they last were. I don't know how I would feel if I was in this position, but it hurts my soul from this side knowing that anybody involved in this was ever hurt again. The mass shooting that occurred on November 5th of 2017 at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs was a complete and utter tragedy, period. There were so many red flags that went ignored, so many chances to step in, to correct course, and to make sure this did not happen. It is devastating, maddening, and every other fucking horrible word you can think of to tack on to the end of this sentence. In an effort to address the failures that allowed this shooting to occur, Congress did pass new legislation to help close the gaps in the background check reporting, and thousands of missing military records were finally sent to the FBI. But none of that could help the 26 people who were killed on November 5th of 2017. It couldn't help the 22 who survived with life-altering injuries or the countless others left behind to carry the grief. Because accountability after tragedy does not bring back what was lost. It only reminds us of how much could have been prevented if someone had just done their fucking job in the first place. Reaction makes people feel good, but it is the proactivity that will stop this from happening over and over and over. Check out my Instagram profile at the Heather Ashley and join me there periodically when we go live and talk about any true crime case on your mind, or frankly, anything you want to talk about, because we're all besties here. If you want to listen to podcasts without any ads, we have a solution for you. I hear people don't like those. We have Patreon for $2 whole a month. Your episodes are totally ad-free. You can also subscribe on Apple Premium. Also, there are different tiers on Patreon. You can also get some bonus episodes, a little extra here and there. It's actually once a month on the first Monday of every month. Anywho, yeah, patreon.com/BigMadTrueCrime, or click subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, guys, I will be bringing you a brand new case next week, and I cannot wait. But until then, we out.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.